Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I'm really excited about today's guest, Ralph Estep, and he's an entrepreneur. And most importantly, he's an accountant, he's a podcast host, he's an author, he's goes by, he's a father, husband, business coach. And I'm really excited about today's conversation because it's all about business, and we're going to talk about exploring the intersection of technology and finance, which is going to be really interesting, business growth. And I love welcoming guests such as Ralph onto the show. So, Ralph, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. I truly appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I know. I love having guests such as yourself because it adds credibility and a lot of experience, and kind of talk about your journey starting out and how you came to do what you're doing today.
Sure. So I have to tell you, I've been in this field since I was about 6 years old. A lot of people say 6 years old. How's that possible? Well, let me explain. So I come from an accounting family. So dinner table conversation when I was a young guy was talking about taxes and talking about accounting and fixing people's finances and helping people in small business. So I grew up in that. And that's just sort of taken me to where I am today. So it's been a labor of love. It's been a over 30-year course of action. So that's how I got where I'm at today.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that. And I wish, a lot of others could look at your journey and just talk about, have financial literacy conversation around the dinner table. That's where a lot of ideas and a lot of themes and stories are passed down to your kids and to the next generation. I wish we could have more conversations about finances and financial literacy.
Yeah, and the truth is, we do a horrible job of educating people, especially young people. And I wrote a book. It's called Mastering Your Finances,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we'll talk about that today. But it's financial literacy, and it needs to start off early.
Yeah. Yeah, I liken financial literacy to basic literacy, being able to read a book. And a couple hundred years ago, only the rich could read books, and if you didn't know how to read, then you were kind of isolated. But now with the internet, and now we have to speak the language of money because that's what makes our world go around. But our school system, political, educational, all these systems kind of shun it because they want to keep us out of the dark, keep us in the dark. So one thing I talk about is this finance. And in the past, you had these narratives like, you had to, advisors, accountants, 401k, you get a good job. And it's kind of changing now that with the internet and technology. So talk about the intersection of finance and technology and how technology is changing finance.
And that's the reason I do a podcast. I do a daily podcast. It's called the Ask Ralph podcast. It's called Mastering Your Finances with a Christian perspective. So I got to tell you, I've got a Christian bend to my philosophy. But basically, the truth is, you can reach out on the internet now and find people like myself who are doing these podcasts, and we're promoting information. We're promoting knowledge. We're promoting, a way for you to grow yourself, your financial literacy. And it's absolutely free. I'm not looking to make money off of it. I'm looking to help. Here's the deal. When I hit 50 a year or two ago, I realized that financial benefits don't fill my tank anymore. That's just the truth. And now my goal is to reach people. Now, how do I do that? I do that through my accounting practice. I do that through my consulting, my coaching practice with small business people. I do that through my podcast. I do that through writing books, because the truth of the matter is we all have a purpose here. If your purpose is solely to make a buck, you're going to fall flat and you're going to be very disappointed, because you're going to wake up one day and realize that you haven't met your purpose. And when you live in that purpose, and for me, that's building financial literacy. That's showing people how to be successful. And I'm not measuring success by how much is in your bank account, because you can be a crook and be successful. If we're looking at financial, how much money you have in your bank. But if you're impacting lives, if you're meeting your God-given purpose, that's my goal.
Yeah. I love this purpose. And, money is basically, it's just a currency. It's a resource that we can use to help others. But unfortunately, in the West, we equate money with status and fame and celebrity, and that attracts, the crooks and the con art, all these bad actors, and we give money a bad name, but it can be actually used for a lot of good things. And I love the work that you're doing. The next question is, how are you seeing the savings and patterns and consumption patterns of, for example, millennials, Gen Z, compared to Gen X and the boomers? How are their views about money changing? And if you can add any insight.
Sure, I'm going to say something that's not going to be very positive. But the truth of the matter, young people are in trouble.
Mm,
They really are. I don't see young people with the skill set that they need to be financially successful. And here's the deal, right? When our parents were younger, there was things called defined benefit retirement plans. If you work for a company, you put in 30 years, at the end of the day, you turn 65, 67, they wrote you a check every month. Well, guess what? That's gone. And the thing that scares me about young people, and I have two young people in my own household. I have a 22-year-old son and I have a 26-year-old son.
hmm
They've learned financial literacy from me. And it's interesting. One really took off and one didn't.
Yeah.
That's what I see in the younger generations. That's compared to the older generations. The older generations understood how to budget. They understand how to save. But
Uh-huh.
the younger people, it's a consumption mentality. If they see it on Facebook, it's funny. I just recorded a podcast yesterday that'll come out next Monday, and it's called 23 Frugal Habits. And I didn't use the word cheap intentionally, frugal, right? But some of those habits are, look, if you can't afford to eat out all your meals, don't. If you don't have a budget, you're going to fail. If you're not putting away money automatically every month or every time you get a paycheck, you're going to be in bad shape. So to be honest with you, my answer to your question is I think we're in trouble.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
I feel like we're in trouble because I just don't think that financial literacy is there. And we're living in a generation where too many people boomerang back into their parents' basements.
hmm
And parents allow that. See, they enable that.
Yeah.
And my whole goal is to try to empower people to figure it out. How do you make yourself successful? How do you find it? What are the things you can do? It's simple. Measure where your money goes, create a budget, set smart financial goals. And what I mean by smart is, specific, measurable, attainable, results oriented, and time framed.
hmm
Manage your debt wisely, build an emergency fund, understand what insurances you need, plan for retirement. As soon as you're able to contribute to that 401k or that 403b or that 457b or IRA or SEP IRA if you're self-employed, do it. And then use somebody like myself to do a good job with your taxes. And finally, make sure you've got good estate documents. That's the whole key to this whole thing. And unfortunately, people go on Facebook, they go on TikTok, they go on YouTube, and they just scroll through and they see what everybody else has. And it's so easy to click on Amazon. I need that today. But how many times do we do intentional buying? How many times do we sit back and go, do I really need that? Or is that a want? Or is it a need? So to answer your question, I think we're in a want generation.
Yeah.
And I think our parents and the older generation was more of a need generation. And that worries me.
Yeah. And it's so hard because you have especially you have social media and you've got the media, and like I basically stopped watching TV over 16, actually no, over 20 years ago. And it's just because it's just a bunch of garbage, and it's like just kind of promoting this consumption and this me thing. And the other thing I have a question about is because I talk to a lot of younger physicians, and they say they see the government spending on frivolous things like wars and invading countries, and here people can't afford healthcare, education. Now the cost of housing, people can't afford houses, and these things are becoming more and more reserved for the rich. So, and they're like, well, this system doesn't apply to me, so I'm not going to listen to old advice because that doesn't apply in this. They don't have my interest. So how do you address that? And also, for example, the federal government, 36 trillion in debt, and it just keeps going more and more into debt, and they can't fund their the revenues with regular taxpayers. So this kind of the government is providing a bad example for others. So how do you?
And so here's my opinion. So 2 years ago, I told all of my clients, mortgage interest rates are going to triple. They just about did that. You cannot continue to spend and spend and spend and spend. Now, you mentioned war. Nobody's a fan of war. My son's in the Coast Guard. Okay.
Yeah.
He's out there serving on the front lines. Do I want him to go to war? No. There are times when, as a country, you have to go to war. I get it. Right. But we can't be the world's policeman for everybody. But anyway, getting back to what I said, here's my true belief. I think after the presidential election, we're in for Great Depression #2. I think it's going to get really ugly, no matter who wins.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have double-digit inflation. I think you're going to see mortgage interest rates back into the teens. I hope I'm wrong. I truly hope I'm wrong. But think about this. You you've got so many people that have checked out who aren't contributing. So to answer your physicians and your people that you're talking about, I get it. They're upset. They're paying the highest. Look, the middle class pays most of the taxes in this country. That's just the truth. That's what I do for a living. I know that for a fact. And it's so discouraging when you get that pay stub and 35 to 40% of your check is gone. And you say, where did that money go? It's going to things I don't want to support. I get it. I think as Ronald Reagan said, the worst thing you can do is get a knock at the door and say, I'm here from the government to help you. They're not here to help you. And I'm not bad mouthing the government, but the truth is, we've got to put a stop to spending. You cannot continue you're not going to spend yourself into prosperity. All bills need to get paid. So at some point, either taxes are going to have to go up. That's an inevitability. Or we're going to have to really look at social entitlement programs and cut them dramatically. Or look at Social Security. It's like the third tier they talk about. Can Social Security fund itself? I did a podcast last week about this. Some myths about Social Security. A lot of people say Social Security is going to fail. I don't think it's going to fail because too many people are relying on it. You'd have people, living in the street if you did that.
Yeah.
But for them to say, hey, the new Social Security retirement age is 70, I could see that happening.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Big Picture, I think we're in trouble. If we don't put a hold on spending, we're going to be, I don't know how you fix it at this point, to be blunt. Yeah. It's going to take some significant changes to the way we do business. And the problem is the people we send to Washington, whether they have an R or a D after their name, have no interest in the common person. That's just the truth. What they're interested in is power. I get it. I've served on, a small town council. I get the power part. But it doesn't help in the long run. You cannot spend yourself into prosperity. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give, just come on in our country. You're welcome with open arms. Don't contribute. Here's money. Here's a cell phone, all these type of things. And we're destroying our country from the inside out.
How does someone start protecting themselves from, just frivolous governments and, our kids are going to inherit that debt. And, it's, I think it was predicted, over 300K in debt for just like one person in the future. So what do you do? Like, I know, budgeting and saving, but then, some of that goes to taxes and it's wasteful and inflation. So what do you do?
So I'm going to take my faith here and I'm going to put my faith hat on a little bit. And the truth is there's only so much you can do. Get your financial house in order. Absolutely. Do the right things. Get your children and your, the people around you's financial house in order. And you got to be prayerful and say, look, is there a way to fix this? I don't think we're going to fix it on our own. I think you have to have some faith in saying, what, God's got a plan for this. And that's not a popular thing to say. My second book I wrote is about, called The Gospel of Entrepreneurship. Most people think you have to check your faith at the door, but you don't. Your faith is who you are. It's your character. So getting back to your question, I think we have to find character. We have to find that on an individual basis, and we have to find it as a culture. We have to find it as a country. What is our character? What do we stand for? Because the only way you're going to fix this is if you stand for something, have character. You need to contribute. In the Bible it says, if you don't work, you don't eat. Well, maybe that's what we need to get to. We've got an entitlement system where I think the number's like close to 50% of people in some sort of government assistance. So it brought down the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
So how do you fix it? I don't know the answer to that question. I wish I did. If I did, you and I'd be very wealthy right about now. Yeah. But anyway, getting back to what you said, I think you have to get your own financial house in order because you can do that. So what are the things that you can actually do? You can get your own things in order. You can't control everything, but you can get your own order, own affairs in order. You can get your family's affairs in order. You can make good plans for the future. To some extent, listen, here's the deal. I think our country's the best country in the world. Right. So where are you going to go and get any better? So it's not like, well, let's all escape. Let's run to so on and so forth. Let's go to Canada. Let's go to Mexico. Pick a place. I don't care. I still believe that America is the best place to be successful. I just think that we need to look at how are we going to build ourselves up and how are we going to define our character moving forward. And it's going to take leaders. It's going to take young people saying that, look, I'm not checking out from government. I'm not letting go of government. I'm going to get engaged because the more people that get engaged, the more likely we're going to have success. If people just throw their hands up in the air and say, the heck with it, I give up. Well, that's what's going to happen. Our government's going to fail. Our country's going to fail.
The other question I have is, how do you see AI and all of these new technologies? Because the internet and you had social media, you had smartphones, you had search, you had mobile cloud, and now AI, and everybody's saying AI is going to really make things better, but then you're going to put people out of jobs, and we're going to have universal basic income. How do you see technology playing a role in all these financial issues?
Well, see, I think AI is a double-edged sword. I use AI in my practice every day. I think it's very useful. But the
Yeah.
problem is you got to be careful with AI because it can make you stupid. You understand what I'm saying? Like AI can make you stupid if you're not still learning. If you're not, you got to check what AI spits out. AI is not always right. Now, there's great things that AI can do. AI is great for crunching, big sets of data. It can help. I've got a client that's a research scientist. AI is great for that. It crunches in, and he said to me, he said, Ralph, most of the time it's right, but sometimes it's not. So technology and all those things are great if we don't allow ourselves to get dumbed down to where, like I said, we're scrolling through TikTok and everything in TikTok is right. Well, guess what? It's not going to make you successful. You've
Yeah.
got to go and invest in yourself. Go learn things. Go find knowledge. You're not going to go onto Google, into whatever they call that now, the AI part of Google or Chat GPT, and find all the answers. Yeah, it'll help you get there. It's a tool, but it's
Yeah.
not the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Because just talking with, basic financial literacy is basically you have an income, you save some of that income, save it for a rainy day, you save, keep your expenses, live within your means, and then from there you can invest. These are more advanced strategies, tax planning, estate planning, all of these different things. I really love your motive and your spark and your why. How can people find out more about you if they want to learn more about personal finance, taxation strategies, check out your podcast? How can they do that?
It's really simple. AskRalphPodcast.com. AskRalphPodcast.com. It's all there. I have over 300 episodes out there. I do YouTube videos. My books are out there if you want to schedule time. I meet with clients all over the world because guess what? America is fantastic. And other people want to know how we're doing it here. So you can go right onto my website. Like I said, askralphpodcast.com/store. You can buy my books there. You can schedule time with me there. And you keyed into something a few minutes ago. What most people don't take the time to do is understand where their money is going. The first thing I do when I meet with a new client is I say, look, for the next 45 days, I want you to write down everywhere your money goes. You will be shocked how many people have no concept of where their money goes. Well, you're never going to fix a problem until you know what the problem is.
Yeah.
So we can have all the discussions, pie in the sky, great, do this, save for that. But if you don't know where your money's going, and I'm not picking on Starbucks, but if you're dropping $25 a day on Starbucks and wondering why you can't pay your bills at the end of the month, well, guess what the problem is? The problem is you. Look in the mirror. You're looking back at the problem. But you've got to go and find out where that is. And that's why I promote my book, Mastering Your Finances. It starts out with, where does my money go? People don't have any concept of that. They don't know where their money is. Well, guess what? If you don't know where it's going, I can't help you. But
Yeah.
once you figure out where it's going, then I can help you. Then we can come up with ideas of how to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because I see people they'll spend, thousands of dollars on the Super Bowl or on alcohol or, but they won't spend, money on a book that could change their lives and change their health, change their relationship. It's just interesting how, the mass culture thinks. And but a really fascinating discussion. And for all the audience out there, be sure to follow Ralph on his podcast, his social media, give him a like and follow. Check out his book on Amazon as well as his website. All of those links will be in the resources in the show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Oh, you're welcome, Christopher. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed our discussion. I think it was more lively than you expected, maybe.